Hey everyone! Today we're going to be working on the skills of identifying character development and plot development. Today we will be reading a short story called Lost and Found by Rebecca Behrens. Short stories are fiction. Let's see if you remember what the term fiction means. Which sentence below best describes a fiction text? A. A fictional text did not happen in real life. It is a story usually written to entertain the reader. B. A fictional text is real and filled with facts. It is usually written to inform a reader about a topic or something that really happened. Please take a moment to select your answer. As we start our story, we enter the exposition of the plot. Usually during the exposition, we are introduced to characters and setting. When we read fiction, we as readers must try to understand the character's feelings and motivations. I am going to start reading the story. Our annual beach vacations had always been enjoyably the same. The scent of salt and seaweed in the air, the steady sound of waves rolling onto the shore, the unchanging faded gray of the shutters of our family's cottage. Year after year, I recognized certain seagulls by splotches on their beaks and the patterns on their feathers, and I knew which regulars would steal my peanut butter crackers off the beach blanket. But this year, everything was different. We do not know our main character's name yet, but we did learn the setting. We are definitely on a beach. Here, the main character, who is also the narrator, has informed us that everything is different this year. How do you think the character feels about everything being different? I can infer that the character is unhappy about the differences she is going to notice this year because of the clues from the text. For example, the narrator states that her vacations have always been enjoyably the same. This makes me feel like she likes knowing what to expect each vacation. She likes the sound that she recognizes of the waves, and she even likes the seagulls. Let's answer a multiple choice question about how the character feels about change. How does Laurel feel about things being different? A. She is excited to try new things during her beach vacation. B. She is furious that her parents decided to go somewhere else on vacation. C. She is sad because she misses familiar experiences from previous family vacations. D. She is concerned because she is lost. Take a moment to select the best answer. Let's continue with the story. Nobody was on the beach but Trevor and me, probably because thick clouds the color of milky tea covered the sky. Our parents were still inside the rental house on the other side of the dunes, trying to figure out where to put the dishes in the unfamiliar kitchen cupboards. I used to always drink my orange juice out of the same chipped sailboat mug, one my grandma had bought the first summer she and my grandpa came to Hatteras. This morning, I'd gulped my juice out of a plain clear glass. It hadn't tasted as good. The main character is continuing to tell us about the changes she is unhappy about during this year's vacation. It seems like they are staying in a new rental place. I know this because the kitchen is described as unfamiliar. The narrator describes the unfamiliar kitchen and then immediately mentions something familiar that she used to love about her vacations. The same chipped sailboat, sailboat mug that she always used to use. It seems like the narrator is not experiencing the good old memories from past vacations. Why do you think the author uses the line, "It hadn't tasted as good," about the orange juice? Do you think the juice really tasted worse? Let's think about that question while we answer our next multiple choice question. The narrator states, "It hadn't tasted as good." The author includes this line to A. Show that the orange juice has gone bad. B. Show that the narrator is attached to the memory of her old favorite mug. C. Show that the narrator is not a fan of orange juice. D. Show that juice tastes better in a mug rather than a glass. Take a moment to choose the best answer. Let's continue with the story. The water was rough, and I didn't know this new stretch of beach, which was right on the edge of the national seashore. The hurricane last fall had changed the shoreline, so instead of swimming, I squatted by a tide pool, watching a crab hobble across the sand. "Laurel, Laurel, come over here!" I pushed myself up and raced toward the sound of my big brother's voice. He was standing in the middle of some debris near the water's edge. "What is it?" I stopped, panting, next to a big chunk of wood. It was about the size of a boogie board. "A piece of wood from a shipwreck," Trevor said with complete confidence. I bent over for a closer look. Yesterday's waves must have left it on the beach for us to find. "I think you're right, Trevor," I whispered excitedly. In all the years of beachcombing at the old cottage, we'd never found anything like this. At this point in the text, we have learned our main character's name, Laurel, and it turns out Trevor is her older brother. Now that we know who our characters are and the setting, the action is ready to begin. The story is set into gear when Trevor finds something very interesting washed ashore. Let's recap. As a reader, I learned who my characters are and where the story is taking place. Now I feel like the excitement is ready to begin. The moment that the reader notices that the action or conflict in the story is starting, it is called the inciting incident or the initiating incident. In this story, the inciting incident is Trevor finds something strange washed ashore. Let's continue with the story. Trevor tiptoed carefully around the debris. He gasped. "What?" I pushed salty strands of hair off my face and moved closer. Trevor rubbed something on his t-shirt. He held out his cupped palm, trembling a little. In it was a thin metal circle, greenish with a hint of gold. "Laurel, I think it's treasure." I plucked it out of his hand. The worn and scuzzy coin felt heavy in my palm. Something was stamped on it, a shape like an X or a cross. I ran my fingertip over the surface, feeling the shape of rough letters or maybe numbers. On the opposite side was a picture of something like a coat of arms. We have now entered the rising action of the story. During the rising action, the action, conflict, and tension build. The action continued in the last slide when Laurel and Trevor discover the old coin. "It looks really old," Trevor said, taking the coin back. "Maybe a piece of 8. No, I think it's gold, which means it could be a Spanish escudo." My brother had spent many summers reading Grandpa's books about pirate ships and the kinds of treasure they carried. "We have to get Mom to drive us to the museum," I said. "They'll be able to identify it." The museum has a lot of artifacts from shipwrecks discovered on North Carolina beaches. This area is called the Graveyard of the Atlantic because so many boats have wrecked here over the years. It was always a big event at the museum when something new was discovered. Trevor and I love listening to the stories the museum guide would tell about each object. Wait, Trevor looked at me. Let's not tell anyone. Not yet. If we found one coin, we might find more. I frowned. We can't keep this a secret. Plus, we're probably on the national seashore, part of the beach right now, which means the coin isn't ours. A large sign at the entrance near the dunes had made it very clear. Any objects, including historical artifacts, found along the national seashore are protected and are not to be removed. But, Trevor paused, nobody knows where we found it. Think about it, Laurel. If this coin really is an escudo, something old and rare, it would be worth money, like thousands. Maybe even enough to fix the cottage. The conflict or problem in the story increases. The tension rises as Laurel and Trevor decide the right thing to do. Tell someone about their discovery or try to find more treasure on their own. Wait, Trevor looked at me. Let's not tell anyone. These words show that Trevor is thinking about what decision to make. Let's look at the boxed words at the end. Maybe even enough to fix the cottage. These words are very important and they allow us to make an inference as a reader. Laurel and Trevor think that the coins might be worth money. Trevor states, maybe even enough to fix the cottage. What problem might the family be experiencing? A. Trevor and Laurel's parents are getting into frequent arguments. B. Trevor and Laurel are lost and their parents cannot find them. C. Trevor and Laurel's parents are struggling financially. D. Trevor and Laurel's family cannot decide where to go on vacation. Pause and take a moment to select the best answer. Let's continue with the story. Part of why we'd come back to the beach this summer was so Mom and Dad could talk to people about repairs. If fixing the cottage was going to cost too much, though, they were going to sell the whole lot, just like that. I watched Trevor dig madly through the sand. Whoever lost these coins did so long ago, he declared. Didn't Grandpa keep the stuff he found? The plot thickens as we progress through the rising action, and the tension builds. Oh no! There we go. Oh no! Laurel and Trevor's parents are thinking about selling their beloved cottage because they cannot afford to repair it. Trevor stopped searching for a moment and looked at me. Maybe he'd want us to do this, use treasure from the beach to save his cottage. When we were little, our grandpa would sometimes get the metal detector out after storms and look for loot on the beach. He never found anything valuable or historical, and he hunted for treasure only where it was allowed. Trevor went back to raking his hands through the sand. Only moments later, he let out a whoop. I found another! I didn't know why, but my heart sank a little. A big part of truly understanding and comprehending fiction is understanding character development. The author doesn't always tell us how a character feels or why they feel the way they do. We must make inferences as readers to understand the characters. Let's take a look at the next question. Laurel, the narrator, states, I don't know why, but my heart sank a little. Why do you think Laurel's heart sank? A. She was sad that her brother only found one more coin. B. She knew deep down that keeping the coins was wrong. C. She was concerned that her parents were looking for them. D. She got sick from accidentally drinking ocean water. Take a moment to select the best response. I left Trevor and wandered over the dunes, trying to figure out if we really were on protected land. Then I saw the sign. Trevor's treasure was well within the boundaries of the national seashore. I decided to go back to the rental house and pretend I had never seen that sign. But just then, the wind kicked up, pushed against me. I turned back to the water. The clouds were moving fast now, and the waters beyond the beach looked like an upset stew, waves crashing against each other wildly, as if they couldn't find the shore. I saw the shape of my big brother, hunched over and small in the distance. When I reached him, I noticed that he was cradling a small bounty of greenish coins in his shirt. "Trevor," I said, squatting down next to him, "we're definitely on protected beach." In the boxed area of the story, Laurel is at the peak of her dilemma. The author even makes the scene seem wild and out of control by having the wind kick up and the waves crash. The tension is at its absolute highest as Laurel determines that the coins are definitely protected by law and not to be taken. As the wind and waves crash wildly, Laurel is definitely at the peak of her dilemma. We are at the point in the story when the tension is at its highest point. Which part of the story are we in? A. The exposition. B. The rising action. C. The climax. D. The falling action. Or E. The resolution. Take a moment to select the best response. We are most definitely at the climax. After the climax, the story begins to wrap up during the falling action. And then, finally, all loose ends are tied up in the resolution. Let's take a look at how this story ends. Trevor stared at me for a moment, chewing on his lip. "I wanted to fix the cottage just as bad as you do, but," I said. Trevor gave me a sad smile. "It's just too bad, you know, how some stuff gets lost." I held out my hand and helped my brother stand up. Coins fell around his feet. We stood there for a moment, looking at the pile of treasure on the sand. I pictured my mom back at the rental house, lining up the bottles of sunscreen in the bathroom, and my dad marinating the fish we'd be eating for dinner. I thought of my grandma and grandpa and the way they loved to hike the island hand in hand. Suddenly, the shoreline didn't seem so unfamiliar. "I know," I told my brother, "but you never know where you might find it again." And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of our story. The story doesn't tell you exactly what happens to the coins. However, using information from the text, you should be able to make an educated prediction. Make a prediction. What do you think Laurel and Trevor do with the coins? A. Keep the coins and use the money to fix their old cottage. B. Report their find to the museum in order to protect the artifacts. Explain your answer. And that is the end of your refresher on plot and character development. Thank you so much for participating.